Okay.
I think it's a good. I think 13 Days is a good film, but I think it's too polished. Particularly that Situation Room.
Mm.
Everyone's like, just if you've been up that many hours, you don't look like that. I know
No,
McNamara
that's right.
always had.
Yeah.
He always had
Well, yeah.
perfect hair, but
Yes, that's right.
that's
That
about it.
brill creamed hair.
Yeah,
But also I found that scene. I think the acting's pretty poor actually. It's all
it's awful.
the admiral in that scene just looks a little schoolboyish in the way that, after that put down. But
Oh yeah, but I mean, some of the footage you've seen is from or some of the transcripts from those meetings that the defense the senior defense officials come across a bit like that.
yeah,
So I think it probably rings true, but he's just awful at
yeah, he
acting
is. Yeah,
the
but
situation.
the guy, I once talked with someone who knows the Cuban Missile Crisis backwards, and I said, was Curtis LeMay really like that? The Air Force general who just says, bomb them back into the Stone Age.
Yep.
He's almost the General Ripper from Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And this guy said to me, no, he was exactly like that. And the movie is the dialogue is actually ripped from the history books. There's nothing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything said in that movie that wasn't said. Although they did amalgamate quotes, and they did put some quotes into the mouths of other characters. But the
Yes.
actual words were all spoken.
Yeah. No, that was its big sort of pushing point, that
Yep.
that was very strongly based on fact, and they've got a lot of documentation particularly about the Cuban Missile Crisis, and even the conversations between Robert and John,
Yes.
the brothers, and essentially how Robert was getting to speak through the back channels to all of Khrushchev's, sort of the guys that were in Khrushchev's ear, and basically
Yep.
say, okay, this is how it's looking, but what are we really feeling?
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting
For me,
piece.
the key weakness of the movie are the couple of personal scenes with the Kenny O'Donnell character played by Kevin Costner, and the
Yeah.
scenes with his family and his children, where it really, I mean, it's not like it's almost as if the director felt like they had to insert these scenes in order to drive home the point that that nuclear war is extremely serious and it could actually kill your family.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And I
right.
tend to think,
Yeah.
well, we sort of knew that, and this all seems a bit redundant and a bit over dramatic.
Well, I think it's Kevin Costner.
Yes.
I'm surely he's got an executive producer
Oh
credit
no,
on the
no,
movie.
he was he funded the whole thing, I think.
Yeah, so it's like, we've got to make this about American families, and if you can get
Mm.
baseball in there somewhere, that'd be great.
Actually, I think it's football in there's one scene.
Oh, really?
Watching his son play football. Yeah.
Oh God, I'm surprised. How many baseball movies does he have now? Like 8. But
Yeah.
it's interesting that you put that up. It made me think of Wednesday's Lowy Lunch. One of the questions was about McNamara and the Fog of War, and of course, just seeing McNamara or someone portraying McNamara in that piece, it makes me think back to that documentary. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I think it's excellent, particularly at showing someone who's incredibly intellectual and incredibly bright and balanced, particularly for well, I guess by modern day standards, an American, let's say, civil servant. Yet how that doesn't necessarily lead to good things. I found that I thought McNamara was incredibly bright. Yet you can't just use essentially outthink your way out of the situation. And until not until that point, but I thought that was sort of the biggest sort of I guess endorsement of that situation, where I went, oh, okay, well, sometimes intelligence alone won't get you out of a dire
That's
situation.
right. The smartest guy in the room is not necessarily going to win the day.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. So and I thought that was an interesting point.
Parallels for Australian foreign policy there. I mean, someone said to me yesterday, we can, we can increase the size of our uh, foreign policy bureaucracy if we want to, and we can be more activist, uh, and we can do all sorts of things to increase our presence and our profile, but power is still going to be a major consideration and is going to influence our standing much more than our activism.
Absolutely. And how does that play off against investing in a film like Australia? How does that affect how the world sees Australia? I mean, it was interesting. One of the lunches that the Institute hosted about football diplomacy and how Australia had gone in the World Cup and how that changed the way certain countries perceived Australia that were perhaps more football obsessed. And it ties back into, I don't know if you've seen, I think it's called Football and Fascism. And it's about it's particularly about Mussolini and, sorry, I've forgotten, Franco. How Franco wasn't interested in football at all, but he understood its power and its appeal to the masses, and how he adopted Real Madrid as his team because of the rivalry with Barcelona and the Catalans. So, and how he used football and when he chose to make announcements around large games. Very interesting, very interesting. And I thought how that tied back into worldwide football diplomacy and how people even perceive us based on sport and things like that. So, I guess what I'm saying is you can invest in foreign exactly all this intelligence and more bureaucrats and so forth. But how does a film like Crocodile Dundee affect, on a macro level, how Australia is perceived worldwide? Now, it might be considered to be a very sort of bubblegum approach to diplomacy. It is, but it certainly changes tourism and how Australia is perceived. And essentially, that's what diplomacy is about. So, I think.
Well, I would part with you there in as much as the perception only matters in as much as that affects our interests. So, I mean, it's nice that people perceive us in a positive light, but that only matters in as much as it furthers our national interest.
Yeah, that's true. But when a diplomat walks into a room, there's a preconceived idea about what his agenda is.
Yeah.
Now that is based on at the end of the day, there's individuals discussing national issues, and they bring some of their personal politics. They can't leave it behind.
Yeah.
Humans are subjective in that way. So as much as they try to, they may vote against something or their own personal politics, but I think you always bring your prejudices to any sort of situation.
Yeah.
And I think that's a sort of a very rich tapestry of, and as much as different things can feed into that over time.
I'm going to stop, Nick, because I just got a call. Hang on, I'm just going to stop recording. Hang on.